Shemai friendly, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin Anwin for anyone who's new here, and let's get back into building in Planet Zoo. And I'm continuing in the Wetlands Conservation Park again today with a Scimitar-Horned Oryx Habitat. And this habitat was inspired by one of the fun facts for the Scimitar-Horned Oryx, which says that some hypothesize that the Scimitar-Horned Oryx is the origin of the unicorn myth, as they can easily lose one of their horns or appear as only having one horn when viewed from the side. So I thought that was like really fun, and the oryx is also the most endangered animal in the game because it is actually extinct in the wild. You know, unicorns are technically rare because they don't exist. And these are the rarest animals in the game, so I wanted to do something kind of mythical for these oryx. And I wanted the guests to feel like they were walking through this forest in search for a unicorn. So it's not technically a walkthrough habitat, but it's gonna kind of feel like it is. And I also wanted to kind of link that in for you as well. So at the end of the video where I normally do my pretties, and I always timestamp it as well, so I've got all the timestamp chapters, so if you don't want to watch the whole speed build and you just want to go to that part, you can. But when we get to the pretties, I'm going to recolor 1 out of 11 of the oryx, and I'm going to make it like pink, purple, white. I'm not going to exactly tell you what color it is. I'm obviously not going to go first person for the unicorn. It's going to be hidden in the background of the habitat somewhere, and I'd really like you to comment if you spot the unicorn oryx and where in the habitat you've seen it, whether you see it near the trees or whether you see it near any of the other parts, which will be labeled in the timestamp, so you'll know kind of what I think it is. But I'm just getting some trees down to start this mystical forest. I wanted more colourful trees and more like mystical, colourful, fun looking trees. So the cherry blossoms have come out. I got some of the Japanese maple. I think they were the Japanese maple. 2 different maple trees. I just wanted like more pops of colour, so they're like more regular green trees on the one side, and then on the other side where we can have these mystical creatures we can have more colour. And for this cluster of rocks, I'm going to make it into a waterfall. The easiest way I found to make waterfalls is to start with the middle section to kind of see where I want the water to fall first. And with this waterfall, I had a couple of different sections where I wanted the water to flow down. So I started off with those first, and it's pretty much one of the only things that you need to actually build with your game on play as well, not pause. I always build on pause, but to see the flow direction of the water, you need to have it on play at some point to see which direction you want the water to flow in. I then work from top to bottom, so I'll do the top section, and that's good for like showing water flowing over a lip like a waterfall, but it also can show where the water will bounce off rocks as well, so you don't necessarily always have to put the top of the waterfall at the top. And another top tip with any of the effects, but with waterfalls especially, is to group all of your effects together. Keep them all in one group so you can find them once you hide them in rocks or hide them in terrain. And then finally, once I've got all the water bouncing off and having some nice texture around the rocks, I've finished it off with the bottom. Right at the end then, I like to use the rapids foam to show water flowing away from the waterfall, because if you think the force of the waterfalls, water would push the water out a little too, like push the water flow away from the waterfall, and that's just a nice effect to add in the water surrounding your waterfall. For this side of the habitat, I needed to make some hard shelter for the Scimitar-Horned Oryx, and I was debating on what kind of hard shelter they would like, what things you would find in a mystical forest, and I was thinking maybe like a little fairy house. In Wales especially, I'm not sure whether it's just the UK or just Wales, but there's a lot of folklore. When I was in like primary school, when I was very young, they would tell us stories about fairies and fairy rings, and not to go into a fairy ring in the forest because you can get trapped in them dancing in circles forever. They'll never let you out, which sure doesn't sound the nicest, but it's just so magical. So I wanted to make like a little fairy cottage for this mystical forest. And for the roof, I wanted a really cute curved roof. And we don't really have that type in Planet Zoo from like the roof pieces. They're all straight, aren't they? They're like straight angles. To get an accurate curve, nice sloped curve, I used the fabric draping as a template. And that gave a really interesting shaped roof. It's not looking especially fairy-like yet, but we'll get there. But the roof is a good start. And to do the like roof wall, like underneath the roof, I used the stone panels instead, and just tried to move those around using advanced move to merge them into the roof without them sticking out. And the smallest one for this stone texture is a 1x2. I would love every panel to have a 1x1. Even a 0.5 by 0.5 would just be amazing, but hardly anything is 0.5. The glasses, I think you can get some glass panels, but not a lot of solid pieces. But I would really love for every single texture, especially in base game, doesn't matter about DLCs, they can do their own thing, but base game needs at least a 1x1 panel for everything. I wouldn't say recently now, but like in the last year, they've added a lot more panels for all of the different wool textures in base game. But we need a 1x1 square for all of the panels, I think. Just because not everyone likes to make these huge, ginormous buildings, it is nicer to have some smaller things as well. I'm also trying to make some smaller little roof decoration buildings. Going to pop them on the roof to give it a little bit more dimension, a little bit of height, and angle them, but I wanted to make some smaller little houses for on top of the roof. So I went with the same sort of style with the curved roof and trying to cover them with panels. Fairy tale stories, myths have fairies living in tree trunks. Like if you think of Peter Pan, doesn't Tinkerbell live in a tree? So I did want to add a tree in. I've used the Planet Zoo log, which is in the construction tab, not the nature tab. And then I used these bushes. I can't remember what these bushes are actually called though. But I like these bushes because they're kind of like a pinky purple colour. And it's really fun trying to make like a little custom tree out of some bushes and a log. But my little fairy cottage, as cute as it is not enough hard shelter for the oryx. So I thought I would just utilise some space that I've got on this habitat that's literally just a hill. It's not really doing anything. I thought I would just dig a little cave for them. I thought, oh yeah, we'll give it somewhere to hide. You know, these are mystical, magical creatures. They need somewhere to hide from, let's say, poachers, because poaching is a conservation problem. So we'll link it in with the conservation pack as well. We need somewhere for these mystical, rare animals to hide away from unkind people, like poachers, hunters, things like that. But the easiest way I find to make cave structures is flatten to foundation. The terrain manipulation tool, the flatten to foundation one, not flatten to surface, because that can make your surfaces kind of diagonal. Flatten to foundation keeps it flat from wherever you start clicking. If you keep a hold of the mouse down once you click and you pull it around, it will stay at that level. If you let go of the button and then click it again in a different area, it will give you a different level, and that will dig into terrain too. So if you start at a point and you go through like a hill or a mountain, That's how you create the cave. Just by clicking and holding flatten to foundation, it will dig around, but it will keep the same surface at the bottom. And then you can go in with the pull and push tools to create like a taller cave or a wider cave, but to keep the ground flat and easily accessible for the animals, just use flatten to foundation. And with the pull and push tools, you don't actually have to alternate between them. If you selected the pull tool and you hold control while you're in pull, it will actually push, and vice versa with the push tool. If you've got the push tool selected and you click control, it will pull. And usually with cave entrances, I like to use a nice cluster of rocks. The rocks usually blend it really nicely, but I didn't want to use rocks for this. I wanted it to feel a little bit more magical, a little bit more hidden. So I thought I would use the grass roof as like a little hobbit hole roof. I ended up kind of cheating in a way. Instead of redoing the curve of the roof, I just duplicated the roof from the restaurant building that I created, the eco restaurant. The pathway for the habitat behind this one is a nice wild flower meadow. So I've added some of the wild flowers on top of this roof to give it a little bit more magical colourfulness. I don't know, something a little bit more interesting. It doesn't necessarily blend in completely, but hides the entrance a little bit better from the guest's view from that path behind it. And to make it more fairy-like, more mystical as well, I wanted to add in some mushrooms, and I grabbed a couple of different mushroom blueprints from Steam, and all of the blueprints that I used I will link in the description. But thank you very much to these creators, because these mushrooms were absolutely adorable. So I grabbed lots of different blueprints to create a little cluster of them to give it a little bit more variation. But these are so cute. Like usually you see like images of fairies on toadstools and things like that. So I wanted to add some mushrooms in as well to make it a little bit more mystical. Just all of these different ideas to give it a little bit more variation, to turn it from just a regular forest to a magical forest where you would find unicorns. As you can probably tell, I had a lot of fun with this, and I had a lot of fun trying to find an outfit and do my makeup kind of unicorn inspired as well. So I went with like my colourful tie-dye top, and my eyeshadows like pinks, purples and blues. I'm not sure whether you can see it in this little video, but I have fun trying to match my outfits and my makeup to my videos. And I didn't specifically re-dye my hair purple for this video, but it was just about time that my hair needed to be re-purpled. My hair dye turns pink as it washes out, so it's like a 2-in-1 thing really. I start off with purple, and then as the hair dye washes out, it goes to like a nice bright pink, so it's a 2-in-1 one. But after adding all of the mushrooms and flowers around the fairy cottage, I didn't think there was enough foliage. So I thought I would decorate the fairy cottage a little bit more and add some more plant life growing over the cottage. Maybe this helps blend it into the forest better, so it's less easily found. Maybe it's just been there a long time, so it's like accumulated all of this like ivy and plant life growing on it. But either way you want to look at it and how it's been, how it came there, how it was created, it looks more fun with ivy and plants growing over it. More like it's been living in this forest for a long time. Maybe you'll find a wolf or a witch in this place too, but you want to imagine it's just like this lovely fairy. But then like fairies are not always shown to be nice. We'll go back to Shadowhunters, why not? Like they can't lie in the Shadowhunters lore, but they're also not the nicest either. And it starts off with like Unseelie are the evil ones, and then Seelie are the evil ones, and Unseelie are the evil ones, and then you go further in and then it's just Seelie again that's evil. but not so evil. The fairies are always up. They're never really portrayed as like the kindest, most helpful characters. They're tricksters. Even though they can't lie, they find their ways around telling you the complete truth, things like that. So, you know, it's always fun. But I wanted more pops of colour on this building as well, not just like the grey and green. So I used some of the smaller flowers to kind of look like they were growing out of the ivy. I'm not sure whether ivy realistically has flowers on it, but this is a fairy tale cottage. I wanted to create little fireflies by the waterfall to make this feel a lot more magical. Like waterfalls feel magical to me anyway, I love waterfalls. But to add these firefly effects around the waterfall, I've just used the New World string light bulbs. Like literally, they're just floating bulbs. I did group them all together so I could continue to readjust them if I wanted to and find them all. It's always good to keep groups like that with really small objects together, and they're just in the colour they come in, like the default colour, and when you go into nighttime they give off this glow around them that looks like a firefly. I haven't done anything special to these light bulbs, I've just dotted them around floating over the water to look like fireflies. I think it looks really, really magical, especially really early at the morning or just before it gets dark, like the evening time, with the lighting where it goes like yellows and purples. It looks really magical with the waterfall and the lights going around it. But yeah, in the daytime at a distance the lights don't actually render because they're so small, so it doesn't even really look like they're there. So it's just a nice little surprise if you guys want to see this at night time, to see those firefly light bulbs floating over the water. And yep, that is pretty much it. Onto the pretties now, and make sure to keep an eye out for the unicorn Scimitar-Horned Oryx, which is recolored a fun color. It will look completely different to the rest, I'll make sure of that. So it is kind of easily spotted. If you do spot it, let me know in the comments where you find it, whether you find it by like a waterfall, in the water, near the cave, Hobbit hole, in the cave, by the fairy cottage, like by the mushroom flowers. You'll kind of know generally where it is. There's lots of different areas, but they're very specifically decorated, and I will give you a shout out in the next video if you get it right. I just thought it'd be a fun little game for like viewers as well. The guests in the zoo will be searching for a unicorn. Why not have you, friendly eye, find the unicorn too? Just a bit of fun. If you have any ideas for any habitats, any ideas for what animals you'd like me to build a habitat for next, even in from a base game animal too, whether it's a conservation or like a wetlands theme or something completely wacky and different like this, let me know in the comments as well. And I'm going to leave it off there. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button and let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload speed builds on Wednesdays and shorts tutorials on Saturdays. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day and I will see you next time. Goodbye!